Wren had perfected the art of being invisible. It wasn't difficult, really. She had learned young that if she moved quietly enough, dressed plainly enough, kept her eyes down and her mouth shut, people simply stopped noticing her. She became part of the background, furniture, a shadow that no one bothered to look at twice. It was safer that way. She had been a servant in Lord Harwick's manor for 12 years, since her mother had died and left her with nothing but debts and a name no one remembered. She cleaned the rooms, changed the linens, lit the fires before dawn, and extinguished them after midnight. She did her work well and without complaint, and in return, the household forgot she existed. That was the bargain. Invisibility in exchange for survival. Tonight was the winter solstice ball, and the manor buzzed with activity. Servants rushed through corridors with silver trays and fresh flowers. Ladies fussed over gowns and jewels. Lords practiced their bows and their flattery. And Wren moved through it all like a ghost. "You there? Girl?" She stopped, turned. Lady Harwick stood in the corridor, her face pinched with irritation, her finger pointing at a spot on the marble floor. "You missed this. Clean it properly this time." Wren looked at the floor. It was spotless. There was nothing there. "Yes, my lady," she said anyway. She knelt and scrubbed at nothing, while Lady Harwick watched with cold satisfaction. This was a game the lady liked to play, inventing mistakes, creating failures, reminding Wren of her place. It didn't matter that Wren had done nothing wrong. It never mattered. "Pathetic," Lady Harwick muttered, and swept away in a rustle of silk. Wren stayed kneeling until the footsteps faded. Then she stood, smoothed her worn dress, and continued down the corridor. Invisible, forgettable, safe. The ball was in full swing when she slipped into the great hall to refill the wine decanters. Music swelled from the corner. Couples twirled across the dance floor in a blur of colour and laughter. The air smelled of perfume and candle wax, and something richer beneath, the scent of power. The Lycan king was here. Wren had heard the whispers. King Aldrich, ruler of all the territories, had graced Lord Harwick's ball with his presence. No one knew why. The king rarely left his palace, and when he did, he certainly didn't attend minor nobility's parties. She didn't look for him, didn't let herself be curious. Curiosity led to attention, and attention led to trouble. She kept her head down and moved along the wall, refilling glasses, clearing empty plates, doing her job. No one thanked her. No one looked at her. She was a pair of hands, nothing more. That was fine. That was how it should be. She was reaching for an empty decanter when she felt it. A weight, a pressure, the sensation of being watched. Her heart stuttered. She kept her movements steady, her expression blank, even as every instinct screamed at her to run. Someone was looking at her. Someone had noticed. That never happened. She risked a glance upward and met the eyes of the Lycan king. He stood across the hall, surrounded by nobles vying for his attention. But he wasn't looking at them. He was looking at her. Only at her. His gaze was fixed on her face with an intensity that made her knees weak. She looked away immediately, dropped her eyes to the floor, made herself small, smaller, smallest. Invisible. Please. Invisible. But she could still feel him watching. The rest of the night passed in a blur of terror. She moved faster, stayed in the shadows, avoided the great hall as much as possible. But every time she had to enter, every time she had to refill a glass or clear a plate, she felt his eyes find her. It was past midnight when Lord Harwick found her in the servants' corridor. "You," he said, and there was something strange in his voice, something that sounded almost like fear. "The king wants to see you." Wren's blood turned to ice. "My lord?" "Don't make me repeat myself. He asked for you by name." Lord Harwick's face twisted with confusion and barely concealed resentment. "I don't know what you've done to catch his attention, girl, but you'd better not embarrass this household." By name. The king had asked for her by name, but she hadn't told him her name. She hadn't spoken to him at all. Her feet carried her to the private sitting room where the king waited. She didn't remember walking, didn't remember breathing. The door opened, and then she was inside, and he was there. King Aldrich stood by the fireplace, his back to the flames. He was tall, impossibly tall, with broad shoulders and dark hair that fell in waves past his jaw. His face was hard, angular, the face of a man who had seen centuries of war and loss. But his eyes were what caught her. Blue. Deep, endless blue, like the ocean at twilight. And they were fixed on her with an intensity that made her want to disappear. "Close the door," he said. She obeyed. Her hands were shaking. The silence stretched between them. She kept her eyes on the floor, waiting. For a command, for a dismissal, for whatever punishment awaited someone who had somehow, impossibly, caught the attention of a king. "Look at me." She raised her eyes, met his gaze, and felt something shift in her chest. A flutter, a stirring, like a bird waking after a long sleep. "What is your name?" he asked. "Wren, Your Majesty." Her voice came out thin, barely a whisper. "Wren." He said it slowly, like he was tasting it. "Do you know why I asked to see you?" She shook her head. He stepped closer, then closer still, until he was standing right in front of her, close enough that she could smell pine and wood smoke and something wild beneath. "I've been watching you all night," he said, moving through that hall like a ghost, invisible, silent, letting people look right through you like you weren't even there. Her throat tightened. "I'm sorry." "Don't apologize." His voice was sharp, then softer. "I'm not angry. I'm curious." He tilted his head, studying her face. "Why do you hide?" No one had ever asked her that. No one had ever noticed there was anything to hide. "It's safer," she whispered. "If people don't see you, they can't hurt you." Something flickered in his eyes, something that looked almost like pain. "Who hurt you?" he asked quietly. She didn't answer, couldn't answer. The question was too big, too heavy, and she had spent so long burying the answers that she didn't know how to dig them up. The king raised his hand. She flinched. Instinct, reflex, the reaction of someone who had learned that hands meant pain. But he didn't strike her. He just cupped her face, his palm warm against her cheek, his touch impossibly gentle. "I see you," he said. The words were simple, 3 syllables, but they cracked something open inside her chest. "I see you, Wren." His thumb traced her cheekbone. "You are not invisible. Not to me. Not anymore." She didn't understand why a king would care about a servant who had spent her whole life learning to disappear. Didn't understand why he was touching her like she was something precious. Didn't understand any of it. But when he looked at her, when those endless blue eyes held hers like she was the only person in the world, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Seen. "You're coming with me," he said. It wasn't a question. "Why?" The word slipped out before she could stop it. His expression shifted, softened, and when he spoke again, his voice was rough with something she couldn't name. Because you're my mate, and I've been searching for you for 300 years. The world tilted, her knees buckled, and as the Lycan king caught her in his arms, Wren realized that her life of invisibility had just come to an end. She just didn't know yet whether that was a blessing or a curse. The king's carriage was warm. That was the first thing Wren noticed. Warmth, soft seats, furs piled in the corners, a lantern that cast golden light across the space, chasing away the shadows she usually hid in. She sat, pressed against the door, as far from King Aldrich as the carriage would allow. Her hands were folded in her lap. Her eyes were fixed on the floor. Old habits, survival instincts, the desperate need to disappear. "You don't have to do that," he said. She flinched. "Do what, Your Majesty?" "Make yourself small." His voice was quiet, patient. "You're safe here. You don't need to hide." Safe. The word felt foreign on her tongue. She had never been safe. She had only ever been overlooked, and she had learned long ago that those were not the same thing. "I don't understand," she whispered. "Any of this. Why you're—" She stopped, swallowed. "Why you noticed me." "I told you, you're my mate." "But that's not—" She shook her head. "Mates are for important people, for nobles and warriors, and not for servants, not for people like me. People like you." He repeated the words slowly, and there was something sharp beneath the calm. "Tell me, what are people like you?" She didn't know how to answer. She had spent so long being nothing that she didn't have words for what she was. "Invisible," she finally said. "Forgettable. The kind of person who cleans up after the party but never gets invited to it." She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "I've spent 12 years in that manner. 12 years, and Lady Harwick still doesn't know my name. She calls me girl, or you there, or nothing at all." Her voice cracked. "No one has ever seen me? Not once. Not ever." The silence that followed was heavy. When Aldrich spoke again, his voice was rough. "I saw you the moment I walked into that hall." She looked up, met his eyes. That endless blue, fixed on her face like she was the only thing in the world worth looking at. "You were refilling a wine glass," he continued, "moving along the wall, so quiet, so careful. Everyone else looked right through you, but I couldn't look away." He leaned forward slightly. "My wolf recognized you before my mind did. It was like finding something I'd lost, something I'd been searching for without knowing what it was." Her chest tightened. "I'm not special." "You are to me." "You don't know me." "Then let me." He said it simply, like it was obvious, like getting to know a servant was something kings did every day. "Tell me about yourself. Anything. Everything." Wren stared at him. No one had ever asked her that. No one had ever cared what she thought or felt or wanted. "There's nothing to tell," she said. "I don't believe that." "It's true." She pulled her knees up, wrapping her arms around them. Another old habit, making herself smaller. "I wake up. I work. I sleep. I try not to be noticed. That's my life. That's all my life has ever been." "What about before? Before the manor?" The question hit somewhere soft, somewhere she had buried years ago. "My mother," she heard herself say. "I had a mother. She was a seamstress. We lived in a tiny cottage at the edge of town, and she used to sing while she worked. The memory rose unbidden, her mother's voice, soft and sweet, filling their small home with warmth. She saw me. She was the only one who ever did. What happened to her? Wren's throat closed. She got sick. Fever. There was no money for a healer, so I just watched. For 3 weeks, I watched her fade. She blinked rapidly, refusing to cry. After she died, I was alone. No family, no money. The manor needed servants, so I went there. I was 11 years old. Aldrich was silent for a long moment. When she risked a glance at him, his jaw was tight. His hands were clenched at his sides. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I'm sorry you lost her. I'm sorry you were alone. It was a long time ago." "That doesn't mean it stopped hurting." The words cracked something open inside her. She turned away, blinking hard, fighting the tears that threatened to spill. "We'll reach the palace by morning," Aldrich said, his voice gentle. "You'll have your own rooms, your own space. Servants to attend you, if you want them, or privacy, if you don't." He paused. "Whatever you need, Wren. Just tell me." "Why are you being so kind to me?" "Because you're my mate." "That's not—" She shook her head. "That's not a reason. You could have anyone. You're the king. You could have noblewomen, princesses, anyone you wanted. Why would you want someone who doesn't even know how to be seen?" He moved. One moment he was across from her. The next, he was beside her, close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating off him. She should have flinched, should have pulled away. But something in his presence made her still instead. "Look at me," he said softly. She raised her eyes. "I have lived for over 300 years," he said. "I have known noble women and princesses and every kind of person you can imagine. And not one of them, not a single one, has ever made my wolf go quiet the way you do." His hand rose slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "You think you're invisible? You think you're forgettable? But when I look at you, I see the most remarkable person I've ever met. You barely know me. I know enough." His fingers lingered near her jaw. "I know you survived things that would have broken anyone else. I know you learned to disappear because it was the only way to stay safe. I know you're sitting in this carriage, terrified and confused, and you're still asking questions instead of running." His eyes held hers. "That's not invisible, Wren. That's brave." She didn't feel brave. She felt small and scared and completely out of her depth. But when he looked at her like that, like she mattered, like she was worth something, she almost believed him. "Get some rest," he said, pulling back slightly. "We have a long journey ahead." She should have stayed awake, should have kept her guard up. But exhaustion pulled at her, and the carriage was warm, and for the first time in 12 years, someone had looked at her and truly seen her. Her eyes closed. When she woke hours later, dawn light streaming through the windows, she found that a fur had been tucked around her shoulders. The king sat across from her, watching with those endless blue eyes. "Good morning," he said. And for one brief, terrifying moment, Wren felt something she hadn't felt since her mother died. Seen. The palace was terrifying. Not because it was cold or cruel or unwelcoming. The opposite. It was warm, bright, full of people who smiled at her, bowed to her, called her my lady, like she was someone who mattered. After a lifetime of invisibility, being seen was overwhelming. Her rooms were beautiful. a suite of chambers larger than the entire servants' quarters at the manor. Soft carpets, silk curtains, a bed piled high with pillows that smelled like lavender and sunshine. Servants brought her food on silver trays. Maids offered to draw her baths, brush her hair, help her dress. Everyone looked at her. Everyone noticed her. It made her want to crawl out of her skin. "You haven't eaten." Wren startled. She was standing by the window, watching the gardens below, when Aldrich's voice came from the doorway. She turned to find him leaning against the frame, his blue eyes tracking over her face. "I'm not hungry," she said. "Liar." The word wasn't cruel, just knowing, like he could see right through her. Which, she supposed, he could. "I don't know how to do this," she admitted. Her voice came out thin, fragile. "Everyone keeps looking at me, talking to me, asking me questions. I spent 12 years learning how to disappear, and now—" She pressed her hands to her stomach, trying to calm the churning. "I don't know how to be visible." Aldrich crossed the room. He moved slowly, carefully, like approaching a wounded animal. When he stopped in front of her, he didn't touch her, just stood there, close enough that she could feel his warmth. "Then we go slowly," he said. "You don't have to do anything you're not ready for. If you want privacy, I'll tell the servants to leave you alone. If you want silence, I'll clear the halls. Whatever you need, Wren." "Why?" The question came out cracked. "Why do you keep doing this? Keep being so—" She didn't have a word for what he was. Patient, gentle, kind. "I told you. You're my mate." "But you don't have to care. You could just—" She gestured vaguely. "Claim me. Take what you want. That's what kings do." Something flickered in his expression, something dark and sharp. "Is that what you expect?" he asked quietly. "For me to take what I want, regardless of what you feel?" She looked away. "It's what I've learned to expect." The silence that followed was heavy. When he spoke again, his voice was rough. "Someone hurt you. Before. Not just with words." It wasn't a question. She didn't answer anyway. "Wren?" His finger hooked under her chin, tilting her face up. His touch was gentle, but his eyes burned. "Tell me." She should have lied, should have deflected, should have done what she always did. Disappear behind a wall of silence and stillness. Instead, the truth spilled out. "One of Lord Harwick's sons," she whispered. "When I was 15. He noticed me. I thought—" Her voice caught. "I thought it was good. Being noticed. I didn't know what it would cost." Aldrich's jaw tightened. A muscle jumped in his cheek. "What happened?" "He cornered me in the wine cellar. Said no one would believe me if I told. Said no one would care." The memories rose like bile in her throat. "He was right. I told the housekeeper. She said I was lying, trying to cause trouble. Lord Harwick said if I ever mentioned it again, he'd throw me out without a reference." She laughed bitterly. "So I learned. Being seen was dangerous. Being invisible was survival." The silence stretched. Wren waited for judgment, for dismissal, for the familiar response of disbelief or disinterest. Instead, Aldrich's hands cupped her face. His thumbs brushed her cheekbones, wiping away tears she hadn't realized she'd shed. "What is his name?" he asked softly. "What?" "Lord Harwick's son, the one who hurt you." His voice was calm, too calm, the calm of a storm about to break. "What is his name?" "Does it matter?" "It matters to me." His eyes held hers. Because I am going to find him, and I am going to make him pay for every moment of pain he caused you. And when I'm done, he will wish he had never been born. The words should have frightened her. This was the Lycan king, a man who had conquered kingdoms, who had killed more people than she could count. His rage should have terrified her. Instead, it made her feel safe. You don't have to. I want to. He leaned closer, and his forehead pressed against hers. No one will ever hurt you again, Ren. I swear it. Anyone who tries will answer to me. Her breath caught. He was so close, close enough that she could see the flecks of silver in his blue eyes, close enough that if she tilted her chin up, their lips would meet. She didn't move, couldn't do anything but stand there, trembling, while the most powerful man in the realm held her like she was precious. I don't know how to do this, she whispered again. How to be seen, how to be wanted, how to believe that someone like you could actually… She stopped, swallowed. Could actually what? Want me. The real me. Not the invisible girl who knows how to stay out of the way, but… Her voice cracked. I don't even know who I am without the hiding. I've been disappearing for so long, I forgot there was someone underneath. Aldrich pulled back just enough to look at her. His expression was soft, open, vulnerable in a way she hadn't expected from a king. Then we find her together, he said. The person you buried, the person you were before you learned to hide. His thumb traced her jaw. I want to know her. I want to know all of her. The parts she shows the world, and the parts she keeps locked away. What if you don't like what you find? Impossible. He said it with absolute certainty. I've waited 300 years for you. There is nothing you could show me that would make me want you less. She didn't believe him. Couldn't believe him. A lifetime of being overlooked didn't disappear in a few days. But when he looked at her like that, like she was the only thing in the world worth seeing, she wanted to believe. Can I? He stopped, started again. I want to kiss you, but only if you want it too. Her heart pounded. Every instinct screamed at her to pull away, to hide, to protect herself from the inevitable disappointment. She leaned in instead. The kiss was soft, gentle, a question more than a demand. His lips brushed hers like she was something fragile, something sacred, and when she gasped against his mouth, he swallowed the sound. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathing hard. Ren, he murmured. I know. She pressed her hand to his chest, feeling his heart race beneath her palm. I know it's too fast. I know I'm not ready. We go at your pace. His hand covered hers. Always. She nodded. Her lips were still tingling. Her head was still spinning. And somewhere deep inside, in the place she had buried years ago, something was waking up. Hope. Terrifying, fragile hope. She was falling for him. Falling into visibility. Falling into being seen. And for the first time, she wasn't sure she wanted to disappear. 3 weeks. 3 weeks of learning to be seen. It wasn't easy. Some days, Ren still flinched when servants addressed her, still pressed herself against walls when she heard footsteps, still woke in the night with the overwhelming urge to make herself small and silent and invisible. But Aldrich was patient. He never pushed, never demanded. He simply stayed, a steady presence at meals, in the gardens, by the fire in the evenings. He asked her questions and listened to her answers. He noticed when she was overwhelmed and gave her space. He noticed when she was lonely and stayed close. He noticed everything. And slowly, painfully, she began to unfold. She laughed for the first time in years, a real laugh, surprised out of her by something Aldrich said. She spoke her opinion at dinner, quietly at first, then louder when she realized he was listening. She walked through the palace halls with her head up instead of down. She was becoming visible, and it was terrifying and wonderful and nothing like she had expected, which was, of course, when the past came calling. "Lord and Lady Harwick request an audience," the guard announced. "They claim you've taken their servant unlawfully." Wren's blood turned to ice. She was in the throne room when they arrived. She had been meeting with Aldrich about palace affairs, learning the things a queen might need to know. Now she stood frozen beside his throne as the doors opened and her nightmares walked through. Lord Harwick looked the same. Grey-haired, sharp-eyed, wearing his authority like armour. Lady Harwick stood beside him, her face pinched with the familiar contempt that had followed Wren for 12 years. And behind them, smirking like he owned the world, was their son, Edmund, the one who had cornered her in the wine cellar, the one who had taught her that being seen was dangerous. Wren couldn't breathe. "King Aldrich." Lord Harwick bowed, but it was shallow, calculating. "We've come to discuss a matter of some delicacy. It seems one of our servants has found her way into your palace." "She's not your servant," Aldrich said. His voice was calm, but Wren could feel the tension radiating off him. "She's my mate." Lady Harwick laughed. It was an ugly sound. "Your mate? That girl? She's a nobody. A ghost who couldn't even clean floors properly. Surely you can't be serious?" "I've never been more serious in my life." "This is absurd." Lord Harwick stepped forward. "The girl belongs to our household. She has debts, her mother's debts, transferred to her upon death. She cannot leave our service until those debts are paid." He smiled thinly. "Unless, of course, you'd like to pay them yourself. The sum is considerable." Wren's stomach dropped. She had forgotten about the debts. The weight her mother had left behind, the chain that had bound her to the manor for 12 years. She had thought she'd escaped. She had thought... "How much?" Aldrich asked. Lord Harwick named a figure. It was enormous. More money than Wren had ever seen. More money than most people earned in a lifetime. Aldrich didn't blink. "Done." The word hung in the air. Lord Harwick's smile faltered. Your Majesty, surely you want to negotiate?" "I said done." Aldrich rose from his throne, and even Lord Harwick stepped back. "I'll have my treasurer deliver the payment within the hour. The girl's debts are cleared. She belongs to no one but herself." His eyes found Wren's. "And she chooses where she goes from here." Wren's heart hammered against her ribs. He was giving her a choice, again. Even now, even after everything, he was letting her decide. "This is ridiculous." Edmund spoke up, his voice dripping with disdain. "You're paying a fortune for what? A servant who can't even look people in the eye?" He laughed, that same laugh she remembered from the wine cellar. "She's nothing. She's always been nothing. I don't know what spell she's cast on you, but—" "Edmund!" Aldrich's voice cut through the air like a blade. The young lord fell silent. Aldrich stepped down from the dais, slowly, deliberately. Each footstep echoed through the silent hall. He didn't stop until he was standing directly in front of Edmund, close enough that the younger man had to crane his neck to meet his eyes. "I know what you did," Aldrich said quietly, "in the wine cellar, when she was 15. Edmund's face went white. She told me everything, and I promised her that I would make you pay. Aldrich smiled, and it was the smile of a predator. So here is what's going to happen. You are going to leave my palace. You are going to leave this territory. And you are never going to speak her name, think her name, or come within 100 miles of her again. He leaned closer, because if you do, I will find you, and I will make you wish you had never been born. Edmund stumbled backward. His parents grabbed him, their faces ashen with fear. "This isn't over," Lord Harwick managed. The council answers to me." Aldrich's eyes blazed. "Now get out, before I forget my manners entirely." They ran, all three of them, fleeing the throne room like the cowards they were. The doors slammed shut behind them, and then it was just Wren and Aldrich, alone in the echoing silence. He turned to face her. The fury drained from his expression, replaced by something soft, something uncertain. "Wren," he said. "I meant what I said. You're free now. No debts, no obligations. You can go anywhere you want, do anything you want." He swallowed hard. "Even if that means leaving?" She stared at him. This man who had paid a fortune to free her, who had threatened her abuser in front of witnesses, who had given her choice after choice after choice, even when it would have been easier to simply claim her. "You'd let me go," she whispered. "If that's what you wanted." His voice was rough. "I would hate it. It would destroy me. But yes, I would let you go." Something cracked open in her chest. She crossed the distance between them and threw her arms around his neck. The kiss wasn't gentle this time. It was fierce and desperate, and everything she had been holding back. She kissed him like he was air, and she was drowning. Like he was light, and she had been living in darkness her whole life. "I'm not going anywhere," she gasped against his mouth. "I choose you. I choose being seen. I choose this." His arms wrapped around her, lifting her off her feet. "Say it again." "I choose you." She pulled back just enough to meet his eyes. "I love you, Aldrich. I love you, and I'm done hiding. I'm done being invisible. I want to be seen. I want to be yours." His expression shattered. Something raw and bright and overwhelming broke through, and when he kissed her again, she could taste the salt of tears. His or hers, she couldn't tell. "Mine," he growled against her lips. "Yours," she breathed back. "Always." He held her so tight she could barely breathe. And for the first time in her life, Wren didn't want to disappear. She wanted to be exactly where she was. Seen. Loved. Home. The wedding was held at sunset. Wren stood in the palace gardens, surrounded by hundreds of witnesses, wearing a gown of deep blue that matched Aldrich's eyes. Her hair was loose around her shoulders, threaded with tiny white flowers that caught the fading light. For the first time in her life, everyone was looking at her, and she didn't want to hide. Aldrich stood before her, his blue eyes soft with something that made her chest ache. He was dressed in black and silver, his dark hair swept back from his face, looking every inch the ancient king he was. But when he looked at her, there was nothing regal about him, just a man, deeply in love, making a promise. "I, Aldrich, king of the Lycan territories, take you as my mate," he said, his voice carrying across the garden. "My partner, my equal, my queen." He took her hands in his, and his touch was warm, steady, real. "I vow to see you, every day, every moment. I vow to notice the things you try to hide and love them anyway. I vow to stand beside you until the stars burn out and beyond." Wren's eyes burned with tears. Happy tears. Tears she never thought she would cry. "I, Wren," she said, and her voice didn't waver, "take you as my mate, my partner, my equal, my king." She squeezed his hands. "I vow to let you see me. All of me. The parts I'm proud of and the parts I've buried. I vow to stop hiding. I vow to love you with everything I am, everything I was, and everything I will become." Aldrich pulled her close and kissed her, and the garden erupted in cheers. That night, in their chambers, he was reverent. His hands traced her skin like she was something sacred, something precious, something worth memorizing. When he whispered her name against her throat, it sounded like a prayer. "I spent 300 years alone," he murmured afterward, holding her against his chest. "I thought I would spend 300 more. And then I walked into that ballroom and saw you hiding in the shadows, and everything changed." She traced patterns on his chest, feeling his heart beat beneath her palm. "I was so afraid of you." "I know. I thought being seen would destroy me." She lifted her head to look at him. "I didn't know it would save me instead." He kissed her forehead, her nose, the corner of her mouth. "You saved yourself, Wren. I just gave you a reason to stop hiding." She smiled against his lips and let herself believe it. The vindication came 6 months later. Word had spread across the territories. The invisible servant girl was now queen of the Lycan realm. The nobody, the ghost, the girl who couldn't even clean floors properly. She sat beside the king at every feast, spoke at every council meeting, and was beloved by commoners and nobles alike. The Harwicks, meanwhile, had fallen far. Edmund had been arrested 3 months after fleeing the palace. It turned out Wren wasn't the only servant he had hurt. Others had come forward once they learned the king was listening. He was stripped of his title, his lands, his freedom. The last Wren heard, he was rotting in a prison cell, forgotten by everyone who had once feared him. Lord and Lady Harwick had tried to distance themselves from their son's crimes, but the stain was too deep. Their allies abandoned them. Their invitations dried up. They became pariahs, invisible, in a way that Wren understood all too well. She heard the news while sitting in her study, reviewing proposals for a new initiative. Shelters for servants who had nowhere else to go, places where the overlooked and forgotten could find safety and support. "The Harwicks have lost everything," Aldrich said, settling into the chair across from her. "Their manor has been seized to pay their debts. They're living in a boarding house in the lower district." Wren set down her pen. She waited for satisfaction, for triumph, for the vindictive joy of knowing her tormentors had finally gotten what they deserved. Instead, she felt something closer to peace. "Good," she said simply. Aldrich studied her face. "You're not angry?" "I was. For a long time." She leaned back in her chair. "But anger kept me small. It kept me hiding." She smiled, soft and real. "I don't want to be small anymore." He rose from his chair and crossed to her, pulling her to her feet and into his arms. "You were never small, Wren. You just hadn't learned to take up space yet." She kissed him, long and slow, and let herself take up all the space she wanted. 2 years passed, then 5, then 10. Wren grew into her role as queen. She established programs across the territories, shelters for the forgotten, resources for the overlooked, protections for servants and omegas, and anyone else who had learned to make themselves invisible just to survive. She became known as the Queen Who Sees, beloved by the lowborn, respected by the nobles. And through it all, Aldrich was beside her. He still noticed everything. The way she twisted her ring when she was nervous. The way she smiled differently when she was truly happy versus when she was being polite. The way she still sometimes pressed herself against walls when crowds got too loud, old habits dying hard. He noticed, and he loved her anyway. Loved her because of it, not despite it. "Do you ever think about it?" she asked one evening, curled against him in their chambers. "That night at the ball?" "Every day." His arm tightened around her. "I think about how easily I could have missed you, how you were trying so hard to disappear, and how close you came to succeeding. But you saw me." "I saw you." He tilted her chin up, meeting her eyes. "I will always see you, Ren. Even when you try to hide. Even when you forget that you're worth seeing. I will always, always find you." She kissed him, deep and sure, and when she pulled back, she was smiling. "I love you," she said. "I love you more than I ever thought I was capable of loving anyone." "I love you too." His voice was rough with emotion. "My mate, my queen, my everything." Ren thought about the girl she had been, the servant who moved like a ghost, the invisible woman who had learned to disappear because it was the only way to survive, the broken thing who had believed she wasn't worth seeing. That girl was gone now. In her place was a woman, a queen, someone who had been overlooked and dismissed, who had been hurt and silenced, who had been invisible for so long she forgot there was someone underneath, and who had found her way back to herself anyway. She had learned to be seen, not because Aldrich had forced her into the light, but because he had made her feel safe enough to step into it herself. She wasn't invisible anymore. She wasn't forgettable. She wasn't a ghost. She was Ren, queen of the Lycan territories, mate of the king, seen, loved, whole, and she had never felt more real. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new tale of fated mates and found love. More Lycan King romances are coming soon.